Greetings. I'm Brian Tuskin, your host. Welcome to Cop to Corporate. Today I have Kristina Kolerich and Kim Triplett-Kolerich from Sheepdog Resume, and they are our special guests and talking about their specialty helping our brothers and sisters in blue and in law enforcement to not only help with the resumes, but career coaching on how to get that next job, whether it's in the private sector or in public sector. There's a lot of jobs out there you cops and law enforcement pros are really qualified for, and you just don't know exists there. So I'm going to have Kristina and Kim tell us a little about your background and experience, and then tell us about Sheepdog Resume.
Hey, thanks, Brian. We really appreciate being here and reaching all the Blue family that's watching and listening. I'm Kristina. This is Kim. Kim's the LEO side of the house. I'm the writer, business side of the house. We started Sheepdog 10 years ago as a way to just help Kim's friends in law enforcement who needed help with their resumes, promo resumes, or to get a different job. I'm a writer. I come out of the news business. I was a TV news reporter, an anchor, and a producer for years, small markets, and then in Chicago. So my specialty and my talent and my skill is in narrative storytelling, whether that be for news or business, which I own a company that does crisis communications. And then it started with resumes, specifically with police officers who would come to us as friends who needed help with it, and I'd give it to them and help them, and they'd move on. And then, as it does in the community, word spreads, and soon it went from, hey, my friend, says Kim, to my cousin's third best friend's grandson in Ohio needs a resume for a promotion job. And so we thought we really need to make this into a business so we can make it wider. And so over the past 10 years, that's what's happened. It's taken over, wonderfully taken over my professional life. I don't do anything else for marketing or communications or crisis communications at all. My focus every day is to help law enforcement officers tell their story to move on to their next chapter. And I come from a police family in Chicago PD, where my aunt and uncle were police officers for 30 years, and my uncle sadly died in the line of duty, and my aunt graciously retired, happily so. So I have a police family background as well, and you are a police officer for your whole life.
Yeah. So, hey, Brian, thank you again for having us on. I am Kim Triplett-Kolerich. I'm a retired sergeant with the Washington State Patrol. I'm very proud of being able to be born and raised here in the Seattle area. And I am too a police family. I also, strangely so, lost an uncle in the line of duty. I have 3 cousins that are currently employed as police officers right now across the country. One of them is actually a chief in the Midwest and an FBI NA grad. And we bleed blue through and through. And this did kind of come out of when I retired and went over to Bank of America, and people were like, how in the world did a sergeant with the State Patrol out of Seattle get a job like I had with a great title? That's kind of intimidating if you're not used to it. How can you build my resume? How did that happen? What did you do? And it really just comes from telling my skills story in my resume, and then owning that, right? It's not bragging about it, but it's actually, I am a fusion liaison officer with the Washington State Fusion Center, and I do have all the other skill sets that corporate America wanted, and it worked out great for a while. So until it didn't, and then I am currently now back in state service, and I do investigations, financial crime investigations. I'm an expert in money laundering and organized crime, and a couple of other financial things that I'm very passionate about, identity theft investigations, things like that. So that's what I do now.
But Bank of America did not work out. They were moving the position to California. So it was time for Kim. We didn't want to move. So we're very fortunate to end up with the Attorney General's office, where she is continuing to fight the good fight and track down fraudsters.
Yeah. Well, I think you bring up a great point to officers looking at either retiring or leaving mid-career. There are tons of options out there, right? So Kim, you went to the private sector, had a great career there, but as things happen in the private sector, it's very dynamic and fluid. Positions move, and you had the decision to move or not. And you said, no, it's not the right decision, for my family. And then you just landed another job, a government job, as an investigator using your skill set. So you have years and years of experience. Kristina, you got that whole journalism and writing experience. You marry that together, it's just a powerful combination to help law enforcement officers build that resume, which they can really show and articulate their skills. Because I could tell you, cops are the worst of selling themselves when it comes to anything outside of law enforcement. And they undervalue what they bring to the table because they may not be able to articulate correctly what they're doing now into the private sector. Maybe it's a little easier for a public sector role, but still tough. So why don't you both give me some insights on your current role and offering when you talk to prospective, let's start with private sector employees, law enforcement officers want to leave, they want to get into the private sector, and then talk about others that want to go back into public safety or just a different line of business in public safety.
Great question, and I'll start because there's one key element to both of what you just said, Brian. And it's strange to brag on ourselves, but it is appropriate for officers to know this. And this is no other company in the country. And we've looked, we've searched. There is truly no other company in the country offering our type of services as a blue family. And so that's what separates us. And if anybody goes and gets their cousin to make their resume or another firm, I tell them that's fine, but they have to be able to do one specific thing, and that is write the narrative tailored to the job. That works for private and for public, but you will not get anywhere past the resume robo scans to even get to an HR person. And you're a blue chip company, you're a top 5 company, so that they don't just look at, it's not like the old days. They don't just get a piece of paper and review it. It has to pass the keywording, right, which is the tailoring of your skill set to that job description.
Yeah, the word count.
And then if you're fortunate enough to get in front of an HR person, they are going to scan it with their eyes and look for the things that pop out, right? Everybody's busy. Nobody has time to read a 3-page block paragraph resume. That's not how it works anymore. So on my side, as the writer of this and the narrative storyteller of a police officer's life, professional life, what I say when you're going to go into private is you take the job description you're looking for. Okay, even if you don't have a specific job you're applying to yet, and you want to just say, I'm interested in going into fraud, for example, or risk management, threat assessment, emergency management, workplace violence. If there's no specific job that you're going for, go look up other jobs and take that language and figure out how your key achievements in your career can translate to what those job requirements are. And that's what I do. But if you don't know that before you even come to me, then it's not going to be very effective for you to have a general resume, most especially in the private sector, because a general resume does not speak to the job. You need to speak to the job, period. So, and then on the public sector, and then you could add your part in on this, Kim. On the public sector, for example, if you want to move up as a promotion, we have a lot of our clients who want to promote up, to the command staff level or even to sergeant level. You have to do the same thing, but this is where your in-house key achievements really stand out. Don't tell me you were on the SWAT team. That's great. 8 out of 10 of our people are on the SWAT team. Tell me the leadership qualities, tell me the thoughtfulness that you had to put behind the 5 major SWAT entries that you've done. Tell me your, what is it called when they do the action plan? Your part of putting together those action plans. What did you have to manage? That's what public and private sector are looking for. The values you bring to your daily job are what they want to see in your daily job.
And I think one good example that crosses over from law enforcement to private sector, and I've said this to many people, and then it just kind of hits, the light goes on, is you have a school resource officer, and Brian, I gotta tell you, I hate it when they tell me, oh, I'm just a cop, I'm just a this, I'm just a that. That is so minimizing what you've done in your career. But a school resource officer translates over very well to a workplace violence professional, investigator, what have you, in the private sector. Change out middle school or high school children in a school setting, which a lot of these buildings are, 4 or 5 stories high, God forbid, like Parkland, and you're changing that to a workplace, but you're still dealing with people, ingress, egress, try to figure out what all the dangers are there, and then work that relationship, which I think is probably easier to deal with adults than children in a school resource officer position. But a lot of that same skill set translates over very well to corporate America, because God knows if you could run teenagers and keep the building safe, or something similar to that, then the workplace would translate very well to that. And when I tell resource officers that, they think all they're doing is doing babysitting during the day with children, and that's actually not what they're doing. They're doing a lot of the arguments that these people have. They know all about social media, the de-escalation, verbal command presence, a lot of that stuff that translates over very well, and especially having the social media presence for that, because you want to be able to, in corporate America, make sure that the people that work for you are not, kind of going off the rails with their jobs. So that's where we've done a really good job with some of our SRO clients of this are opportunities for you. And they had no idea. They really just, I'm just a babysitter. I'm like, no, you're not. And then we walk through it and they're like, oh, wow.
You nailed it on the undervaluing. I'd say our 2 things, if I may, that our LEOs come to us. One, they're completely undervaluing their skill set and their experience. And 2, the past 2 years, emotionally wrought for many reasons. For the climate, for their department in-house, emotionally truly wrought. So if LEOs are listening or watching this, honestly, you're not alone. 8 out of 10 of our clients come to us heartbroken and angry and bitter and scared, and just tired, wouldn't you say?
Yeah. And trying to figure out how they're going to go do something else and make $130,000, $140,000 a year. That's going to make them what they're making right now. And so we do a lot of expectation conversations with them.
So with your service, you also do mock interviews, don't you? Do preparation, because one of the hardest things to get through is an actual interview from a phone screen, if you fortunate enough to get HR through the automated bots, and you're talking to someone, you got to get through that first before you even get the in-person or Zoom type of interviews. So tell me a little more about, how do you prepare LEOs for interviews?
Well, we do I do several different versions. We have a number of questions that when our, what now has become our friends, our clients are going in for interviews, I will ask them for feedback on what were some of the unique questions that they didn't expect to get asked. So we've got a long list of those that we give them. I also know some of the best questions that they're going to be, the general questions are going to be asked, because the last thing you want is to do an interview and have 4 or 5 questions be asked by the panel, and you in 25 years of service only have one example that you've got locked in your mind to say over and over again. And they need the interview panel needs to hear about the diversity in your career. So when we're talking about doing that, we literally start with setting up a Zoom interview, because a lot of police officers didn't get to work from home for the last 25 months, like unfortunately I did. So they don't know how Zoom works, right? So we set them up with the Zoom, and we teach them how to look in the room, what to wear, how to set it up, literally step by step there. And all the questions are going to be asked, and then really go think about, the answer to why are you the best person for our company, right? That's always one of the last questions they ask. But yeah, so we talk to them about that, about, how to appear, how to answer, don't do things like that, because I know in my time in the patrol, you were always asked the same questions. They just went over your resume. A lot of times they already knew who they were going to pick for the job. Let's just be honest. And so when I got into corporate America, it was very interesting going through 5 levels of interviews in order to get the position that I had. And each one of them, I came to the table with a different set of answers to show just how broad my career path was. And I don't think that officers even think about that. But ahead of that, I would say prepare now, start an Excel spreadsheet of all the training and the bizarre cases that you've had, so that you can sit down and not have to rehash 25 years of your life when you're trying to retire. Some of the best prepared people that we have got, they just send us the Excel and all the different things they've done in national certification trainings and some of the different things that they've done. So they're already prepared to hand it all over to us, and then to go and have all these cases that they've already worked and rehashed in their mind, so that they're prepared for these job interviews. And those are the ones that are like, wow, you've really thought of this. You knew at the end what you were going to be doing, and you came well prepared to us to help build that resume.
Could you give me some success stories? Maybe not mentioning the name of the department or the companies they're going for, but in general, where someone came in with low expectations and walked away just exceeding their expectations.
I can tell you that I can say 99% of our LEO clients come in with low expectations because they devalue themselves. The greatest things that happen to us now, Ryan, are the text and the phone calls every week, literally every week, from our client friends. That's probably the best way to say that, who say they got the job, or they got the third round. That is, for me, and I had reached my goals in my career in broadcast journalism, this is beyond the most meaningful part of my career. I absolutely love hearing, especially the officers who were so emotionally drained, that we walk through it. And again, we don't get them jobs. I just help. I help them find value in what they've done. And then I know how to write it so they can communicate it. So to hear them say they've gotten hired, it is the most meaningful work of my career. There's just no question. And it's your way of giving back to a career of 35 years now, right? 34 years that has given you a life and self-fulfillment. Is that the right way to say it?
It is. So there's 2 that I can think of.
Yeah.
I was at a conference. I've started to go to conferences, and that's kind of our only sales pitch.
We don't market ourselves.
Yeah, we don't want that. But I went to a training, and a officer came up to me, a detective, and he was considering promoting, and he wanted to know if we did promotional resumes. And I said, yes, we do. And he definitely undervalued himself. His own sergeant was sitting at the same table with me, of course, during happy hour, the reception, and kept pushing him to apply for this position, for a promotional position. And he wouldn't. He just was like, no, no, no. So a couple weeks later, he texted me. I gave him my card, and he texted me, and he said, okay, I'm going to do it. And then we literally worked with him, and probably a month later, it was a very long process in California for this position. And he texted me just a picture of the business, or of his badge, and it had the promotional rank on it. And I just cried, texted him back. And then the other one was, we had an officer that was injured in the job, but could still do investigations, just couldn't wear the uniform anymore. And one of the positions that I suggested was going into the state database where he was, and there happened to be a couple of employment security job opportunities. And he applied for the first level. And through the interview process, because we had worked very close with him, he actually, by the time he got through, they had actually offered him an investigator 3 position instead of an investigator 1. And I was coming home from a trip to see my family in Kansas and was at the airport when he called me and was crying because he got that job. So here I am waiting at the airport crying with him because he literally a month and a half earlier was at his wit's end about having to be out of law enforcement. Where's he going to go? What's he going to do? And those are the stories that I love to tell. And every once in a while, I just text him and say, "Hey, how's it going?" And he could not be happier. And it's something he never thought of, doing employment security investigations, and he absolutely loves it.
But on if I may, on the private side, everybody, whether they are quitting or leaving, depending on how they're feeling that day, with 5 or 10 years on, or retiring at 20 or 25 years, everybody wants to go for positions with Amazon, because Amazon puts a lot of positions out there. Walmart, Microsoft, name any other top tier company, right? They put out corporate investigator positions all the time, as you know. And the hardest part for me, because I don't want to be negative and I don't want to devalue someone who's coming to us already questioning their value in the corporate world, there has to be a line of realism, however. And because you have done, and I can't think of a specific type of investigation, but because you have done, let's say we get a lot of SVU type of officers as well, because you've done a lot of sexual assaults or homicide investigations, and you're saying, I've done these for 21 years. I have seen things that I can't even talk about my whole career. Amazon, for example, has a corporate investigator fraud position. I'm perfect for it. And I don't want to be negative to them because they're fragile, honestly, and excited. But at the same time, the realistic part is you are not perfect for a corporate investigator position, a fraud position. You have done sexual assaults and homicides, but I can work with you on your key achievements, and I could help you spin this so you can at least possibly get looked at. These are not easy jobs to get. And I want to make sure that everybody understands that. There are jobs out there. There are a ton of corporate investigator jobs, corporate security management positions. But if you don't have your resume tailored to those jobs, you will not get looked at. Yeah. So that's the key thing that I'll keep hitting on, Brian, is because I value your 20 years as a sexual assault homicide investigator. Absolutely. How you're going to come in and track down corporate fraud, if you have to have SQL experience and any type of computer fraud experience, if you don't have that, you're not going to get looked at for that job. No matter how hard I try to PR spin, your key achievements and your bullet points, if you don't have that experience, you are not going to get looked at. You might be the best person for the job, but the 100 other people with corporate fraud experience and SQL and IT investigations experience will get looked at. So what do you do then? Do you give up? And they say, well, then I guess I'm just not going to get anything. I'm going to go be a cart pusher, right? Is that what's left for me? Is a low wage job? And we say, no, fortunately for you, there's tons of certifications you can get. You can go, and this is where you specialize in as well. Don't start looking for a job if you're going to quit next week, right? Start looking for jobs a year, 2 years before. Don't apply to them. See what their requirements are, and then go get the certifications so you can say, yes, I had 20 years homicide and SVU experience, but I'm also certified in ACES. I'm also certified in the following certifications that make me fraud knowledgeable. Go ahead. You're really good on this training part.
No, I think it's super important that you get that your resume doesn't have stale training
That's
and
the
stale
word.
certifications, that if they're not in the last 2 years, and a lot of cops don't know some of the best websites to go to get these certifications and trainings. So I'll walk them through that. I'll send them a follow-up email with that and make sure that they've that their resume is solid and tight, and they've got the latest and greatest information on open source investigations and all kinds of other stuff that they're going to need in order to be valuable in the private sector world.
Well, Kristina, Kim, you've given invaluable information for the men and women in blue that are looking at leaving to the private sector or moving to other departments. And I want my listeners to take a look at Sheepdog Resume for consideration. Also, there's tons of free resources out there, but if you need a specialist, Sheepdog Resume is someone I highly recommend, and they have helped many officers with their future. And let's continue this conversation, Kristina and Kim, and thank you for being on Cop to Corporate.
Thanks, Brian.
Thanks, Brian.